Hi, everybody. Good morning. Okay, so this broadcast is called "What is Reality?" Have you guys ever stopped to think about what reality really is? A while back, I was studying some of Terence McKenna's ideologies about reality with the use of psychedelic drugs. If you haven't heard of Terence McKenna or any of his works, I encourage you to look him up. He is very much an inspiration to me to think outside the norm, and hopefully if you check him out, he will open your mind to some new ideas of reality as well. Basically, Terence McKenna had come to the conclusion that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself in a physical world. Now, if you don't understand that, I can understand why, but let me try to explain the best I can. Think of us as fourth-dimensional beings. In the fourth dimension, we are a collective consciousness. All of our souls are interconnected, and yet we are cognitive of each individual soul. There are also theories suggesting this to be true. It is believed that we indeed are fourth-dimensional beings. This explains why we as humanity believe in an afterlife, because we know for a fact that this is not the end of life, just an incarnation of life in the third dimension. So you may be thinking at this point, if we are collectively creating the world, why is it so bad here? What, doesn't everybody want the same thing? See, I thought this too, but you know what conclusion I came to? We're human. Human nature is driven by greed. Each individual being thinks, what do I get out of this? Even without realizing their motives. It is in our nature to do so. Anyone who claims they are not driven by greed is simply craving approval, their greed for approval. It makes them feel closer to perfect, but perfect we are not, none of us. There's a quote, and I know that it's not verbatim, but it goes something like this: "Only that which is in you can recognize that in me." And it simply means that you cannot know all facets of someone's personality because you only recognize the things you are familiar with. For instance, if you've never experienced love, you would not recognize love in another. Another good thing about this analogy is that we all experience different degrees of love. We each experience love differently, and we all show our love differently. Have you ever been in a relationship where you thought that, the other person wasn't loving you the way you thought you ought to be loved? Well, it's because that person does not comprehend your version of love. Perhaps they are a new soul, maybe experiencing life for the first or second time. So think on that for a minute. I feel it's a very important lesson in life that we all need to listen to and understand. The more people who understand this, the better we will understand ourselves and the rest of humanity, bringing us closer to that collective consciousness that we are. Okay, so let's explore reality as we know it. Are you aware that everyone experiences reality from a different perspective? And you can take this quite literally. Not only are you the only person experiencing life from inside your mind, but your body as well. We experience life through feelings and sensations, as well as our past experiences. Let's think of it this way. You would have a different experience walking down the dark alleyway alone, depending on if you were a mugger or a muggee. I know it's a bad example, but it really shows the contrast of individual reality. And also physically, the way we see things is through light refraction. The photons falling on my eyeball are not the same photons falling on your eyeball, and therefore, even down to the minuscule details, we see the world differently. All I can say is try to understand that we are all connected, and yet we are separate. Collective consciousness that's cognitive of individual consciousness. We are very unique in this, and we need to learn to embrace it instead of fighting it. The person you despise the most, the things you despise in them, are versions of things which are in you. If you can recognize it, it's part of who you are. You may suppress that part of it if you dislike it, but rest assured it is there. When people do not understand each other, it is because one lacks the capability. The older the soul, the less understood they become, because there are less and less souls who have the same experiences. These old souls can choose whether or not to reincarnate or to stay in the fourth dimension. Most choose to stay in the fourth and, quote-unquote, retire, so to speak, hence the reason for the increase of new souls in the world. Have you ever met someone who reminded you of a child? lacking life experience and very naive, odds are they're a new soul. You can usually tell new souls from old souls just by getting to know them. Are old souls better than new souls or vice versa? No. The old souls have past experiences to rely on, but this could also prove bad because as the world changes, their preconceived notions may lead to a great deal of misunderstanding. Old souls are wise but lonely. The new souls are very naive to life, but they usually have the joy of being lighthearted. Think of a new soul as an innocent child who does not know the woes of the world. So I'd like to reflect on a quote from Montauk. Understand that you only experience that which you need or choose to experience, and that which you need to experience was chosen by you at some point, one time or another, level of being, who knows. Therefore, you are in some way responsible for all that happens to you, whether you created it or allowed it. The attacks you receive ultimately serve to teach you lessons, and how successfully you defend against these attacks determines how easily you learn your lesson. Most importantly, know that you will never be given anything that you cannot choose to handle successfully. So, what is reality? You decide.